Wambui, how did you find carnivore?
I found carnivore out of the blue. I ran across a video on YouTube of somebody talking about how they just ate meat and dairy. And to me, that sounded, at the time, it sounded pretty gross. And I thought, ooh, meat. Because I still had that mindset of, vegetables and fruits are better and you need to stay away from meat and, watch your cholesterol and all that stuff like that. So I kept hearing these people talk about how much weight they'd lost and how they felt better and they had more energy. And I think the person that wow, oh, I can't think of his name now. There is a well-known YouTuber, older guy, who mentioned the fact that when he started doing carnivore, his gum disease went away. And at that time, I was having a lot of gum issues. And that kind of convinced me. I said, well, I got to try it. If I, I, I want to try it. And so went carnivore like that day. And I just started from watching the YouTube videos of people like you, like yourself, and other people on YouTube. I just kind of followed along the carnivore route to see what was going on. So I started carnivore that day. And then I continued to watch YouTube videos about carnivore. And I just kept hearing how amazing people felt. And they would show their before and after photos. And I was impressed. And I thought, well, I'll try it. If I don't feel good, I can always not try it. I can always just eat how I used to eat. So I started doing the carnivore. And I almost within a week felt really good. I started feeling better. I I didn't have trouble waking up like I was having before. I seemed like I had more energy, and the more and more I stayed on the carnivore week after week, I was just feeling more energetic. Now, I'm 75. I'm going to be 76 next month. And I was feeling 75. I was feeling old. I was feeling tired. And I excused it as, well, you're old. How are you supposed to feel? In fact, I used to carry a little seat with me everywhere I went so I could sit if I wanted to sit, which was most of the time. And here in New York, you're always waiting for something. You're waiting for the bus. You're waiting for the subway. You're waiting in line. There's always a line. You're always waiting. And so like a lot of the women in New York, I won't say the older women, but a lot of women in New York have those little trolleys with the wheels. I don't know about where you are. And so I had one of those, and mine had a seat on it. So if I stopped, I could pull down the seat and sit down. And it was amazing how many people came to me. In fact, so many people came to me wanting to know where I got that cart with the seat that I actually printed up little things with my Amazon affiliate number on it to give them. But so I just felt like, and I told people if I ever get another job, there has to be a seat involved. Well, I started feeling really good. I don't know, I can't say exactly whether or not the gum disease was helped, but I don't have gum disease anymore. That's all I have to say. I mean, I was, by the time I found out about the diet, I was in treatment. So I don't want to take anything away from the dentist, but right now I don't have those issues. I don't have bleeding gums. I don't have anything like that. And so in the beginning, I was eating a whole lot. I could take a whole package of bacon in the morning, cook the whole package, and I would eat that for myself. That was I'd eat that with 3 to 4 eggs. I just ate a lot. I ate a couple of hamburgers for each meal, and I was just eating, eating, eating. And what I have found now is I don't eat as much. I don't eat as much. Um, and I'm more picky about the carnivore food that I eat. For instance, I really am not into chicken. I really don't want to eat chicken anymore. I mostly eat just the beef, different steak cuts and anything that's beef, but no chicken and very little pork except bacon. You gotta have bacon. What's life without bacon? So the bacon. But I don't eat very much right now. Now, I never had a weight issue. In fact, when I went on the carnivore, my concern was that I was going to lose too much weight. And in the beginning, I started losing weight and then it tapered off and it seemed to have come back and now it's kind of like settled. So I feel, good. Um, Recently, in the beginning too, I was not into condiments. I didn't want to put things on the food. I thought I should just eat it plain or only with salt. I thought that's what you had to do. And now, because I'm coming up on 2 years carnivore in March. March, it'll be 2 years. And I'm a little more comfortable now. I'll use a little Tabasco sauce, every now and then. And yeah, so I discovered sardines recently. And oh, I got to tell you, all right. So in the summer, it was like a year. What that would have been like a year and a half, maybe. I was feeling so good that I went and applied for a job, and I now have a full-time job. Where this is the person that couldn't stand up, I needed a seat all day, and now I'm on my feet. Well, if you count the travel time and home and travel time, 10, 12 hours a day, I'm just on my feet, and I feel good now. I got to tell you, I do have the best support hosts in the world that come up to my waist, and I do have great shoes. And I know they make a difference because when I started, my legs were getting a little tired. But once I got the compression socks and I got a really good pair of standing shoes, asked for shoes like nurses have, I can go all day. I can go all day. I feel really, really good. And so the only thing, my family is supportive. My family, they don't all get it, but they're supportive. Like they see that I'm healthy and, they respect my way of eating. When I visit them or we go out, they always try to make sure we're going someplace where there's carnivore food, things that I can eat. And they're very respectful in that way. Although I know my son-in-law doesn't get it. My daughter, my son, I know my son-in-law doesn't, but he's very respectful. And whenever he makes pork chops, he'll say, "You want to come over? I made pork chops." So he's that person. I have a daughter who is vegan, and she's very respectful too. I respect what she's doing, but I'm hoping that one day she'll realize that I'm the one who got it right. No, so I'm happy about that. I'm happy that the people that I'm closest to, even though they don't all understand it, and even though some of them have concerns about my health because of it, but they are at least respectful and, say, hands off, this is what she wants to do. And until, we see some medical things going on, we're going to allow her to do that.
Wow. So
Yeah.
this has been almost 2 years.
Uh,
What keeps you going with carnivore? Is it just the energy? Is it the simplicity?
I think both. I think the fact that you don't have to think about it when I go to the grocery store, I know where I'm going. I'm going to the meat counter. And it is yeah, it's real simple. At and at the same time, it may not sound sometimes I don't even believe when I say I feel so good. I feel absolutely amazing. I don't feel any I don't feel bad. Now, I do have to share something with you, a mess up that I did, which was recently. In fact, I was thinking I'm not going to be able to visit with Dave on Monday because I might be still stuck here in the ER. What happened is, uh, I'm gonna say about 3 or 4 nights ago, I had come home from my job and I had to be back at 8 o'clock the next morning. Let me tell you, I've been doing some hours for an old lady. Anyway, so I had to be back at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I didn't feel like cooking, not even a steak or a burger. But I saw this bag of chips. I saw a bag of, well, it's a brand that my children, I think it's called Siete. They make tortillas, and it's a brand that's supposed to be clean, and it was avocado oil. I don't think the potatoes were organic, but it was avocado oil. And I thought, I'll just have a few of these. Got salt, potatoes, oil, you know. Well, I had a few, and I don't know if you remember an old TV commercial I think it was about Lay's potato chips, where they say, I bet you just can't eat one. Well, I I ended up eating the whole, and I'm not talking about a snack bag. It was a bag. I ended up throwing the bottom part away because I didn't want to eat the last. I ate the bag of potato chips. I went to bed, and when I woke up the next morning, my stomach was cramping, and I thought I'll just push through this, and I won't do that anymore. And I went to work, and I was good for about a half hour. And about a half hour into my shift, I said, I gotta go. My stomach was cramping. I felt woozy. I had just never felt that bad. I had, since this was a few days ago, which is, what is this? This is January. Since August, I had never missed a shift. I'd never been late. I'd always been there to cover my stuff. Where all the young people are calling out, they can't make it, they got to go home, but I'm hanging in there. But this day that knocked me out, and the only thing I could think was, wow, you shouldn't have eaten those potato chips. And so I was on my way home. My children said they were going to meet me here, and on the way, I just felt so bad that I said, I'm going to go to one of those City MD places, those little local doctors. And so when I got there, one of my daughters met me there, and then I started throwing up. And the doctor couldn't see me for 40 minutes. So my doctor said, we're going to the ER. So I went to the ER, and my stomach was just cramping, and I felt woozy. I felt bad. I never felt that bad. I hadn't felt that bad in 2 years. And I felt foolish for eating the potato chips because I thought that's what it was. Now, the doctors, here's what's interesting. They never asked me what I ate. They asked 2 questions. What medications are you on? Okay, none. And they asked me, any supplements? None. Okay. And I wanted them to ask, but at the same time, I was scared because I was afraid if they found out, they would talk me, you can't just, and they convinced me that the reason I was sick was because of carnivore. But they never asked me, which they never asked. They did a lot of ultrasounds for my gallbladder and my liver and EKG, and they gave me, the fluid. And then I was there for maybe 8 hours or so while they just watched me. And then they decided, to keep an eye on my liver and my gallbladder. But otherwise, I'm free to go. Now I'm not a doctor. I don't pretend to be one. And I respect doctors. But in my head, I believe that it was the potato chips because my body was not used to that oil that much and those and potatoes in that quantity. And I believe I just messed myself up. So they also thought perhaps it was a stomach flu too. They were trying to check that out. But I must say that I was surprised that I had stomach issues, but no one asked, what did you eat?
Right. It's a little bit strange, right?
So, but in the end, I'm happy they didn't because, like I said, they probably would have talked me out of my diet. But right now, for a day after the hospital, I felt kind of. But right now, I'm feeling back my old carnivore self again, and I don't have any cramping. I don't have it. I feel good. I feel real good. I feel my old carnivore self. So yeah, I'm just never gonna eat. I learned my lesson. I learned my lesson the hard way, they say. So at
Right.
least I know what not to do.
And this was even a kind of a high-end kind of more natural products kind of potato chips, right? It wasn't like
Yes,
just some,
because I wouldn't
common
have
one.
eaten that. Well, maybe I was because I don't think I would have eaten it if it had been a run of the mill potato chip with all the ingredients but it just was. It was a company called Siete, and it's just avocado oil, potatoes, and salt. What's wrong with that? I thought. And again, Dave, I do have to say maybe I did have a stomach flu. I don't know. Maybe there was something going on. Maybe there is something going on, and it just happened to when I ate the chips. You know, I drew attention to it. So I am going to go for my follow up with my doctor and I'll see if she asks me what I eat. but I'm but I'm going to go. But I really think at this point, no one. It's going to be hard to convince me to stop eating the way I'm eating because I don't know how you can feel so good and it be so wrong. I don't. So at this point, I don't know what would happen, but if I have to share that with my doctor and there, because otherwise I'm healthy. I'm like I said, I'm going to be 76 next month. I don't have any medications. I have I I don't have any illness that I am aware of,
And you're
you know.
doing a full-time job.
And I'm doing a full-time job. And then coming home and I got to play with AI when I get home. Got to play with chat GPT and me got to, do stuff. So
So,
um
um, like, what is when when you don't have the day where you're going into the chips, what does a regular day of eating look like for you?
well, a regular day will be where I start with uh soft boiled eggs and I don't like sirloin. I like ribeye steaks, and I usually try to go to Costco and get the thin sliced steaks from Costco, and so I'll eat the steak, the eggs in the morning. Like I said, there's sardines at lunch, and then when I come home, it'll be burger patties or more steak. It's just very simple stuff like that. A can of salmon. I don't go all out like I used to. I'm into the canned foods now, the canned salmon, the sardines, the tuna. I can do that too. And so it's not as elaborate as it used to be. And I think part of that is because of the job. So working all those hours, I don't have that luxury of and I think also that's one of the things too that happened is because I don't have a set schedule. Mine is is 40 hours a week, but one day is 7 o'clock in the morning and then the next day don't go in until 3, get off at midnight. So it's like all those variations in there. So I think that interrupted my having these, you know, steaks or all these meals, you know. But I do have I like yogurt. A2 yogurt. There's a company that they're supposed to be more easily I never liked milk. Never, well, even as a child, well, I liked milk in my cereal, but I never got into milk. And so as an adult, I never did milk. I don't like milk. But I love the yogurt. And sometimes I think, I don't know, can you eat too much yogurt, Dave? Is yogurt one of those things you can overeat? Uh,
I don't
oh,
know, it really depends.
it's
I
just
mean,
plain
it's
yogurt.
down to the individual, I guess.
Yeah. So, but yeah. So, but yeah, it's just very few things that I eat. I just eat the same things over and over. But I've even cut out, like I said, a lot of those things. And like the chicken, I used to, oh man, I would die for a chicken wing. But now, I'm over the chicken at Thanksgiving. I don't even want the turkey.
Right.
I'm just a beef person now. Beef, beef,
Mm.
beef. And not even so much lamb anymore, just beef. Yeah. So,
Yes. So the fact that you're working this job and it's
mhm,
such irregular hours as well,
mm, mhm,
and you're almost 76 and you've
mhm.
got all the energy to do this is a pretty big thing.
I think so. I think so. And also, I don't think I've mentioned um brain fog gone too. Um, because I was kind of nervous at 75 going for a job where I had to learn different how to operate different, computers, cash registers, different things. And I kept thinking, oh God, how am I gonna but I think again that the brain fog had lifted, and so, um, they still get on me about forgetting to clock out sometimes, but that's about the only thing I forget. I'm in such a hurry to go home, I just got home. But other than that, I think I've learned a lot it was it was overload to the fact where when I first started the job, I couldn't have a life outside the job. I'd come home, fall out, wake up, do it all over. And there was no going to my own channels or trying to do things on my own. But now I'm at the point where, okay, I know what we're doing now. So now I can continue my outside life and do that. And yeah, I really think, let's see, it's a lot of a lot of young people around there. And I just find that interesting and fascinating because one of the things it does is that it brings back memories of how foolish I was when I was their age, but I thought I knew everything. So I sit back and watch them do, and I don't want to, I don't interfere, but I like, oh my God, because I just a worker there. I'm not, but a lot of these people could be my children, if not my grandchildren. And, but, I just, you know, go with the flow. One of them, just
I think, yeah, when you're working in a kind of environment where there's a lot of kind of generations of people, you start to realize, wow, the work ethic and the thing we did around work was very different, when I started working, right?
yes. Yes. Yeah, so, yeah, it's very interesting being in the work world today. One day I'll write about that, but it's like customer service. Um, a lot of the younger kids, they really believe they're giving you someone good and but I'm thinking, no. but I don't say anything. I'm just one of them. I
I
can't say
I
anything,
think
but
smartphone culture is responsible for this a little bit, you know?
yes. So, but I feel I'm very grateful that someone gave me a chance. Because when you go for a job, no one is supposed to ask you how old you are. At least here in America, that's this discrimination. You can't ask. But every application says, "What year did you graduate high school?" Well, when you say 1968, the jig is up. So, I thank them for giving me a chance, and because somebody knew that I was old, but they gave me a chance, and I appreciate that, and I'll be forever grateful to the company for that. Yes.
Mm. So how have your friends reacted to you over the last 2 years? And, you're eating this different way, you've got more energy than you have before, you're now doing this full-time job. Are any of your friends kinda like, "This is a bit strange. You're acting a little bit more energetic than I would expect given how I feel."
Um, I think they see, but they think it's genes. It's like they even my sister. I have a sister who is 2 years older than I am, and we're pretty close. And I'm always saying to her, now my sister is has slowed down a lot. Um, she won't like it that I say, but mentally and physically, she's slowed down a lot. And I'm always saying to her, because I live in my sister's house, so we share the kitchen. And I'm always saying, why don't you just try eating meat? Just try it. But she is convinced that's just my thing, and she doesn't. Um, I don't know, for whatever reason, she's not even. I said, well, just try it for like a week or two. And she's just not interested. So I don't know. Um, you know, I know she sees the energy that I have now compared. I know she sees that, but for some reason, it's not enough to convince her to try it herself, or I don't know what the deal is with that. Yeah. Oh, I do believe though, Dave. I do believe that it has to do with because I was with some friends at Thanksgiving that I grew up with. We're the same age. We grew up in North Carolina together, and I was with them around Thanksgiving holidays. And I don't want to badmouth say. I'm not trying to say anything bad about doctors, but they're so convinced that if the doctor doesn't tell you to do it, then you shouldn't do it. Or if the doctor doesn't think it say that's okay, then it's not okay. And I believe that's how my sister is too. It's like, well, the doctor never mentioned anything about just eating meat. The doctor never. And so, and I know my other friends were like that too. Is like the doctor never. I'm going to do what my doctor tells me to do. Okay, so there. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think a lot of people, that is the thing. The doctor didn't say that this is okay or whatever, so I'm not going to do it. Um, the big change has been like, doctors are very different these days to what they were 40, 50 years ago, right? Like 40, 50 years ago, a doctor actually listened to you and asked questions and stuff like that. You know,
Yes. Yeah. You got more than 5 minutes.
right, right.
Yeah, you got more than 5 minutes.
So
Yeah.
I just wanted to check. So, like, what is your commute like now to your place of work? Like, is it quite long?
It's not very long. I don't know. Okay, so if you know that New York City is on a grid, and so I'm uptown, So I'm around 135th Street, and where I have to go to work is at 34th Street. Um, so there, I walk 3 blocks to the subway and take the train. Once I'm on the subway, it's not a very long trip. It's from 135th and 125th, 11610, and so on until it gets to 34th. So it's not a very long trip there once you're on the train. And then once I get off the train, then I end up in Penn Station. And it's funny because there are ways to get out of Penn Station that would put me closer to where I need to be. But there is this escalator that goes up and comes out just beside Madison Square Garden, and to me is pretty. So every morning I get off the train and I say I could go that way. That's the short way, but I want to go the pretty way. So so I take the escalator up, and to me it is pretty. It has all these lights up above. It's one of those really tall escalators. Um,
Oh,
but
nice.
yeah, so that's what it's like. And at night going home, um, well, hmm, see, New York, well, we all know New York is not one of the safest cities. Um, and it's just a lot of people who have a lot of issues. Like all of them are not bad people, but you don't know which ones are and which ones aren't, because if they're homeless and they're acting irrational, then you don't know what someone might do or who might do that. So you just find yourself just trying to keep away from everybody. But there's always, those things that you see on the TikTok and the news of the people in the subway just sometimes arguing over nothing and threatening to do something because somebody brushed them the wrong way. That's true. And so sometimes I change subway cards several times. Sometimes I've even gotten off the train just to not have to be on the train with the people or the person that was on the train. So you just pray and you go. And, I guess in my head, I've justified that anything is you're taking a chance. Even if I had my car and I'm driving, I'm still taking a chance. And, just the steps in my house, that could,
Right.
so
Yeah.
who
So,
knows? So I just
but
go.
on that commute, you're no longer taking your kind of sit down thing with you. You're just going for it.
I'm just going for it. And I stand there. Usually I only have to stand at the longest, at the most, 10 minutes at the most. Um, but yeah, it is standing there, and sometimes confusion because a lot of times in New York, the trains don't do what they're supposed to do. So, in fact, sometimes when I'm going home and it's late at night, the train that's supposed to keep going downtown, they'll say, "Oh, we're going back up." So you say, "Okay, let's get on this train that's supposed to go down, because now it's going back up." So it's just a lot of
Bit of an adventure.
it's an adventure. And I'll tell you what I don't do anymore too. I learned this the hard way, is when I do have a day off, don't plan anything for the day off. Like this past day off, I went to this was the night I had the potato chips. I had um I had gone to the dentist and then to the chiropractor, and now I felt like I worked all day because in New York, for me, it seems like it takes so long to get to every place. And so I told my children, I said, I'm never going anywhere on my day off because then I don't have a day off. I don't get to just sit down because it just takes so long in my opinion, in New York, it takes so long to do one thing where I know my brother called me. He was in North Carolina. He called me. He and my nephew were out riding one night and they called and they said, "Hi, how you doing? I just picked the nephew up from his ball game and blah 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 and we're going here and we're going there." And I said, "Well, okay. Don't worry about me. I'm out here down with the rats waiting for the train, but no, you go ahead. Don't worry, but don't y'all go and have a good time." And they had named like 5 or 6 places they had gone. And in New York, that would have taken like half a day to do one of those things.
Right.
So, um, yeah. So I guess people say, well, if it's so bad, why don't you get out? I waited too late. Hence, that's why I have a job. I waited too late to get out because when I came to New York, I was in love with New York because I wanted to do theater. And where you have to be in New York to do that. And so I had a very fruitful theater career. I was never rich or famous, but I was an actress and I went from job to job. I did tours. I did a little bit of Broadway. I did some really big shows. I did some great characters, and I had a good career. But like I said, I was never rich or famous, and I didn't plan well, and so that's why. So I'm in New York, and right now, mm, I keep thinking I'm over the theater scene, but I keep thinking if somebody calls me and offers me a part, I'll take it. I'm over it. But if you offer me something, hey. And I remember seeing an actress, I won't call her name, but in her older years, she was she couldn't remember, but she was in these shows and she would literally on Broadway would stop and say, what's my line? And eventually they gave her earpiece so they could help get her through the show. But I said to my children, I said, please don't let me go out like that. And they said, well, it depends on how much they're paying you. I said, oh, I get it. So, but yeah, so, and I had a wonderful speaking career. Well, see, my life was a lot of challenges along the way. Um, you see, I grew up in Greensboro, North Carolina. I grew up doing a Jim Crow, but I'm not bitter and I don't hold that against anyone. Um, I didn't know we were a lower class family until I grew up. But my mother did what they call the day work, where she cleaned up people's houses, and my father worked for the post office in the end. And there were four. I have 3 siblings, and we lived in a 2-bedroom house, very small 2-bedroom house. But my family was together. My father was there. My mother was there. And my mother was about getting an education, and she was very determined that her children were going to be okay. Uh, okay, so I think I was the one that disappointed her the most because I wanted to be an actress and that didn't make sense to her. She said, you need to get a job you can fall back on. But in the end, I ended up in New York at NYU School of the Arts. It's called Tisch now. When I went, it was just a little building on Second Avenue, and studied acting. And while I was in the acting program, I auditioned for a show that I didn't even know what I was auditioning for, but I read they wanted you to take a parable from the Bible and make it funny. And at the time, I was thinking of being a stand-up comic. In fact, I still haven't gotten that out of my head yet. But I was thinking of being a stand-up, and I thought, I want to go see if they'll think my stuff is funny. And so I went and I auditioned, and they thought it was funny, and I felt very good, and I was going to leave, and they said, now sing your song. And I said, well, I don't have a song, but I didn't care because I wasn't supposed to be auditioning anyway, because the rule of the school was not to audition outside. And so it was like, I don't have a song. And they said, sing something. And they insisted I sing something. And so I sang this song. I was in love with Dionne Warwick at the time. If you see me walking down the street and I start to cry each time we meet. So I sang that song and they said, okay, good. Let's do some improvs. So I did some improvs. And by the time I got home, they had called and said, we want you to come sign your contract tomorrow for the Washington, D.C. company of Godspell. And I didn't tell anybody because I thought they'd made a mistake. And then when they saw me, they'd say, yeah, you're not the girl. But they let me sign the contract. So that was my first professional job. Um, and yeah, that was it. That was the first professional job. But somewhere in there, you see, what happened is I did that for almost a year and a half. And then depression set in. And I was in and out of the mental health system. Although I was performing and I did go from show to show, I was also on all those medications and all those things. And uh, it was, it was, so my life was like, so then I got married, got divorced, got married, had 2 children, got divorced. And then in the meantime, I was doing the theater thing too. And I had the 2 children. Now I had 2 daughters and everything was crazy. I was like nuts. I was totally out of my mind, to the point where the doctors told me that I was never not going to be in the system. And they at one point put me on disability and they told me pretty much my life was over. And I think the defining moment was, okay, so Tony Robbins, you know Tony Robbins, the guru? Okay. He used to have this infomercial that would be on TV about, if you listen to my tapes, you're going to be okay. So I didn't like him for doing that. I felt if these tapes worked, everybody would be okay. Why? So it didn't make sense to me. So you could order his tapes for 4 easy payments. So I ordered his tapes um and when I ordered the tapes, I thought I got to do everything he says to do so that when I write my letter saying that this guy is a phony and a fake, you know, I can say I did everything he said to do. So I started listening and I give him, I know that it's God, but I give him credit for being the catalyst for turning my life around, because it's as if he was speaking directly to me. And I know they say the teacher will appear when the student is ready. And so I guess I wasn't ready. But when I got those tapes, I was ready. And just the things he was saying, he saved my life, turned my life around, changed the way I think. I wasn't carnivore then, but he did change the way I eat and made me conscious of what I was putting in and on my body. And he changed everything except my financial. I guess I got to go back for another part.
One of the
But I
tapes was
was no
missing.
longer thinking suicidal thoughts. I was no longer sad. I was no longer depressed. And when I was, I knew what to do because of the lessons that I learned from him. And also, I did the fire walk. He used to do this thing. I don't think he's allowed to do it anymore. But
I
where you,
remember, yeah, I remember that being in the news.
yeah. So and those were not just smoldering embers. That was fire. It was burning wood. And and I went to an event where I walked through the fire. And sometimes when I'm thinking of things, I'll say, you know what? It's gonna be okay. You walk through that fire that night. so, so, so yes, but it was Tony Robbins, and then it was the fact that they were talking about taking my children away. So then all bets were off. It's like, okay, you know what? I'm healed. Well, and I walked away from the system, and I guess the statute of limitation is over now. I walked away. They can't bring me back, I guess. But I walked away from the system, and I just started changing everything. In fact, that's how I got my name, Wambui. I was named after my father. My father's name was John Lewis Washington. My mother predicted I was going to be a boy, and she wanted to name me after my father. And so she named, even though when I was born, she saw I was a girl, you'd have to know my mother to understand she decided she was going to use the name she chose anyway. So she did change the middle name to Ann. So I was John Ann Washington, but John spelled John. And in those days, compared to they used to tease people if you had a boy, if you were a girl with a boy's name, the kids would tease you and all that stuff. So my name was always confusing. In fact, when I look on the internet at those places that put who was in what show, like when I was doing most of my shows, my name was John Ann Washington. But when I look at the places and I can see that was me that played that character in that particular company, I don't see my name. I see Washington, and then I see Martha, Joyce. I believe it's because they thought that John, they have to say, I know this was a female that played this part. So why are they putting John? So they just don't put anything. So, but yes, so I changed my name. I wanted a name that meant something to me. Uh, Wambui in Swahili means singer of songs, and Bahati means my fortune is good. And I wanted to legally change my name. And my family thought I was having another episode when I announced I was going to do that. And I remember my mother said, child, because my brothers and sister were concerned. They said, she going to change her name? And my mother said, she's not changing her name because to change her name, she needs a lawyer. And if she gets a lawyer, she's going to have some money. And I happen to know she doesn't have any. So don't worry about it. But when I went down to the courthouse that day and I inquired about changing my name, there was somebody there who overheard and said, oh, let me take you to the library. I can show you how to fill that form out. Because that's the form that usually you go to the lawyer for, that one form that they fill out. So they filled it out for me, gave it back to me. And the lady said, that'll be $35 and we have to post it for 30 days for your creditors. And I said, okay, I got $35. And so I went back in 30 days. I was no longer John Ann Washington. They issued me a new birth certificate, Wambui Bahati. And so that's how I became Wambui Bahati. And my
Wow.
mother was refused to call me that. But she finally, and before she passed on, she was calling me Wambui. But yeah. And it's so funny because I have a daughter who's changed her name, not legally, but she has a name, an alternate name. And I'm thinking, that's not the name I named you. And I'm thinking, payback. That's now I know how my mother felt. That's not your name. I didn't name you that.
Right, right. Oh, wow.
But since then, and then I wrote a play, a musical about it called Balancing Act, the musical, which I used to do all around the country about my mental health journey. And then I became a speaker and I used to speak about mental health issues, domestic violence issues, and that's what I did up until, I guess, COVID. COVID has shut you right down. And so that was my life before. Okay.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. COVID put an end to a lot of things. Yeah. Um, so uh, at at this stage, like you're on this path going forward. There's no going back for you.
No, no. I feel like I've gone almost 2 years and I've I've been able to do things that I think I couldn't have done before, and I feel absolutely amazing. So I don't know why I would even think about changing things. Um, I just don't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
going back would mean going back to always thinking about food again and having the food noise and all that kind of stuff, right?
It would mean that, and it would mean, yeah, I don't even know, like, how I would eat that. Now, I don't know how, like, no, I ate those potato chips. Okay, learned my lesson. But I don't know how I would eat rice, potatoes, fruits, vegetables. That they just seem so foreign to me now, that I seem like I'm able to get along without them. If anything, I think one night, I heard on a podcast, and I'm so sorry, I can never remember anybody's name, but they were talking. It was a show where they were talking about Solomon, King Solomon from the Bible, and that being the wisest man, that he had a certain diet that consisted of mostly meat, but he also had sourdough bread, yogurt, honey, and anyway, they call it the Solomon diet or something like that. That's what they were calling it. And it sounded really good. And especially the yogurt and the honey with honey, that sounded so good. And sourdough bread, but it has to be, clean sourdough. The um, so yeah, I think if anything, I'd consider if I was going to incorporate more stuff, I would go to what they call the Solomon diet and do that. But I don't think I could go back to the beans and the rice and all that stuff like that. No.
Yeah. So if one of your friends said, "Okay, I'm gonna try doing this carnivore thing, Wambui," how should I get started? Would you recommend they just rip the Band-Aid off and jump in, or maybe transition slowly?
See, I would, because that's how I did it. I would just say, just what for your next meal, have a burger, then have a steak, have meat, pork chop, lamb, whatever meat you like, just have that meat and just do that. Don't eat anything except maybe some eggs, some butter, salt, water. Oh, yes. Okay. Oh, let me stop before I hear one. I do take the LMNT now. I don't, that was, um, yeah, now I started taking that when I started working, and that makes a difference too, having those electrolytes and that salt water. Anyway, I but yes, I would tell them just to do it. Um, just start eating the meat. It doesn't, I know that to me, it doesn't seem that difficult. You just start eating the meat. Just keep eating the meat and leave everything else out. So yeah, I would just say start.
Yeah.
Start.
Just keep it nice and simple.
Yeah. Now the other thing too, when I started, is I was concerned about being constipated. I was not constipated, but I was concerned because it seemed like I had gone a long time, too many days without having a bowel movement. And so from watching the carnivore videos, I realized that was common, and that you don't have that much garbage now to come out. And so you know, my balls started moving. They don't move as often as they used to before I was carnivore, but I'm not constipated and they seem regular, and now I know what to expect. But that would be one of the things that I would say to just be aware of. You're not constipated. You're just, you know,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, when
yeah.
they're not eating garbage, then there's nothing to get rid of, right? So,
Right.
yeah.
Garbage in, garbage out. Yeah.
Right,
Um,
exactly.
so, and I would tell a friend, just start. Here's some meat. Um, I believe that I hear a lot of the carnivore people say it doesn't matter the quality of the meat, and I don't think it does. However, if you can get grass fed, if you can get a higher quality meat, get it. But if you can't, then just get the meat, because and especially the beef. So Yeah. So that's it. It's like it's been a good journey. It's been interesting. Uh, I never knew I'd end up a carnivore. I didn't even know what that was until,
Right,
until a few years
right.
ago. But
Yeah.
it has been a beautiful journey for me, and I'm glad that I know about this because I feel like it's really made a difference
Mm,
in the quality of my life.
yeah. So, Wambui, if people want to reach out to you, how can they find you online?
Well, my main website is wambui.com, and once you get there, you'll I have a crafting channel that I'm not active on right now, but it's called Wambui Made It, and I think I have 40 I think I have 45,000 subscribers over there, but I'm not active over there right now. And then I love nostalgia, and so I have a channel called 70 Years and Beyond. And so I have a few channels. Me and my brother did a channel called Remembering How It Was. That was a lot of fun, where we would get together once a week and talk about what it was like growing up in Greensboro, North Carolina in the 50s and 60s and 70s. And I think it's important for us to hold on to those memories and stories that life is changing so fast that I think we are losing not only the stories, but we're losing the history. And so that's one of the things that I want to focus on is keeping the history and the memories and the stories alive. Like there are kids today who don't know remember the telephone that used to be in the house with the receiver. There are
Yeah.
kids who don't know what that is or what that was used for or how you would use it. Once they
Yeah.
find out it's a telephone, they can't figure out what did it do,
I'm
you know?
reminded of that on a day-to-day basis when I say stuff to my daughter like, "Oh, I tried to call, but it's engaged." And she'll look at me like, What does engaged mean?" So
Yes, yes, yes. Oh, there's so many. Like I remember one of the worst things you could do when I was growing up was go to somebody's house and make a long distance call without telling them. And then when the bill would come in, oh,
it
they'd
was
track
so
you down. They'd say, "Who
expensive,
was in
right?
my house on this date? Who made this call?" I mean, it was over once uh, and even and my aunt, I have an aunt who passed when she was in her 90s. And when she was in her 90s, it was about 1998, like that. And even then, she never understood. I don't think the cell phones were so prevalent, but if at all, but she, she didn't get that. She would, I would call her and she'd say, "Okay, hi, how you doing? How you doing, Ann? Yeah, you doing okay? Well, I'm gonna hang up now." But I called her. "I'm gonna hang up now. I want your bill to get high." "Okay, bye." And nobody would talk because nobody wanted the bill to be high. When we went away to New York, or my sister went to Washington D.C. to school, if my mother wanted to know we arrived, the idea was just to call her and then hang up, and she'd know that was the signal that you were okay because to talk would make the bill go high. So, uh, yeah, so it was,
Things have
yeah, those
definitely
were the good
changed.
old
I
days.
I
Did
remember
you ever
those
have a
days.
milkman, Dave? A milkman that brought your milk to your house?
Yeah,
Yeah,
when I was really little, yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's, you know,
With the foil
paper
tops
boy
on
used to
them,
go
right?
by with the paper, throw the
Mm.
paper.
I did that as a job, yeah, yeah, yeah.
See, see,
I
yeah.
only lasted a week and I went, "No, it's too cold for this." Yeah,
Anyway, so those are the kinds of things that I want to keep alive. I want those stories not to be lost because everything's changing so fast.
yeah, yeah,
And
definitely. Yeah. So I'll link to your website and your channels in the show notes. Wam
okay.
Wambui, thank you so much for coming back on and letting us
Thank
know
you. I
how
could
things
talk
are
to you all
going.
day, Dave. I'm trying to get off now. I know you're trying to go on to your next thing you have to do. Okay, I'm gonna zip it up. Thank you. I just want to say thank you. And by the grace of God, I know that I'm here and I know carnivore has been so good to me, but I know that it's God that has led me to these wonderful things that have made my life so amazing. So thank you so much for having me on.